So, Dan, been wanting to do this for a while now. We've got a pretty cool video coming at y'all's way. We are going to discuss our top 5 favorite moments in Game of Thrones. And by moment, I mean scene. So I figure we start with number 5. So Dan, what is your 5th favorite moment in Game of Thrones?
Well, I kind of labeled my list a little differently. That way we had some kind of like spread out. I noticed that when you and I were talking, we kind of had a little bit like a lot of first and second season ones. So I kind
Yep.
of had mine as like different series or different scenes for different seasons that I really liked. That way I have like a couple
Okay.
for each season. I'd say if I had to start with like my least favorite scene of my whole entire list here,
Yes.
I have to say that I really love. There's a scene in season 3 where Tywin it's the first time it's revealed that Tywin's having the meetings in the Tower of the King or the Tower of the Hand instead of closer to the king. And it's a great scene between Tywin and Joffrey of like who the real king is. Like Joffrey's like just a placeholder for all intents and purposes, and it's kind of revealed for the whole family to see for the first time that like Joffrey's like, why is it so far here? Like I don't want to come all this way. And he's like, well, I would have put it closer if you'd been bothered to attend any of them. And it's just like, oh, roasted on small council meetings. And that's one of my favorite scenes, but it's probably on the bottom of my favorites list.
Okay. It's an interesting scene. It's a very political scene.
Oh, those are my favorite scenes. Like the machinations of it all happening.
Okay, and your 4th.
My 4th is a very similar scene. When you had put in your list the Night's Watch Oath, I thought for sure we were going to have the same exact scene. Mine is where they hold against the giant in the wall episode.
Yes.
And they say,
I agree.
They're trapped in there with the giant, and he's like, night gathers, and now our watch begins.
Yep.
Like it's just like and they start reciting it as they fight. It's so
as
cool.
the giant starts running down.
And they're just screaming because they know they're like they shut themselves in. They're like they can't let him get out.
Yep. And it's funny because just before that, what's the name? Alistair Thorne looks to Jon and says, "You were right. We should have sealed the tunnels."
Yeah, which is actually not what happens in the book.
Great scene.
Jon is the one who's against sealing the tunnels in the books because he wants to let as many wildlings get through as possible. But that's not here or there. So yeah, that's why I thought like that whole episode is actually probably one of my favorite episodes. But since we're doing scenes, I have more favorite scenes than the ones in that episode.
Yeah.
But Watchers on the Wall is like, and then there's another scene in that episode. Just honorable mention for me is the knock, draw, and loose, like with Alistair Thorne. Like, does knock mean
that's
fucking
a great
draw?
one.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Yeah. And then you realize his humanity. You're like, oh, he's just a guy.
Yes, no, I agree. That battle does a lot to redeem Thor.
It's the best part of I think the entire show. Alistair Thorne.
Thorne, yeah. That episode does a lot to redeem him because you spend like 3.5 seasons going, this guy's just a dick.
Yeah, in the books
that
too,
moment,
it's like,
in that moment, you realize, well, he's been here for a long time. He's watched this once great force dwindle into just the crap of the Westeros. So yeah, it's.
Well, I can expand on them a little bit more for you if you really want to like Alistair Thorne a little bit more than you probably do. So Alistair, like you said, joined at a time when there were more lords and knights in the Watch. It was more reputable because Robert let a lot of them take the black. So 17 years ago, a lot of them took the black. And so it just dwindled since then, like deserters and people dying. And so Alistair Thorne has seen it fall apart. But he's there because he was defending the Targaryens.
Yep.
He was at the Trident. He fought at the Trident, and he basically he has a grudge against literally the person who he fought for is heir. Like Jon is supposed to be like the heir of Rhaegar in theory.
Yep.
And so like it makes his character even more tragic that he's like, if he knew who Jon was, you know what I mean? Like his life would have all this purpose of like, oh, now I'm supposed to help you restore. Like that's what I'm here for. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
Exactly.
oh,
Yeah. No, I
man,
agree.
like,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
It's
so
good.
great.
It's compelling. It's compelling stuff.
So your third favorite scene of Game of Thrones, Dan?
Third favorite scene has got to be it's the Purple Wedding. It's Joffrey's death scene. Not only
I'm
did
so
Jack
happy you said
Gleason
that.
do, yeah, he's the Jack Gleason did an amazing job acting. I'll never forget his face with I don't if makeup, if he's like it's phenomenal. Just love that whole. He's on top of the world. He couldn't be a bigger prick, and then he just skin dies. Like, and I remember watching it live like that. So I've been watching it for a long time, and we used to have viewing parties back in college. And I remember everyone in my fiance's, but then she was my girlfriend's apartment. We all went over there to watch it because she had HBO, and we all jumped up and started cheering, and we started spilling all of our beer and throwing popcorn all over the room, like because we had just experienced like the previous season, we had just experienced the Red Wedding. So to get this, we were like, yes, like we were so hype, and it was one of my favorite moments ever. Like so, that scene is huge. My number two is to move on. I love the I love the scene where it's the Blackfire battle, right? It's like the whole kind of lot.
You mean Blackwater?
Yeah, not Blackfire, Blackwater. Yes. Oh, geez, aha! I like the scene. There's a specific scene in that battle where Tyrion goes, and I'm Stanner man. I love Stannis. I even like the change in that episode where he decides to lead the charge because it's good for in that world, whereas it's actually viewed in the real world or in the book world as really smart to not lead battles because that way, like Stannis and Tywin are like viewed as equally very smart, competent commanders because they lead from the rear. They know exactly what's going on in the battle. But there's a scene where Tyrion says, there's some good, brave men out there. Let's go kill them. And I just love that scene. And it's followed up by like the Hound saying, fuck the king, fuck fuck all this. And, he just leaves. He just takes off.
So we heard your second one, the moment that Tyrion just kind of
charges into battle. Yeah.
Gets everyone hyped.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Dan the man, my friend, your number one moment in the HBO series Game of Thrones.
So good. I love this moment, but I have a hot take about the actual episode.
Oh, real quick. First, any honorable mentions? Is there anything that you like? This is the great scene, but I just couldn't put it in my top 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of Davos scenes that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
They're more just like they're not done like with heart. They're more done like, okay, well, this happens in the story, so we need to do this. Like, so I don't, like I really would have liked a Davos in White Harbor.
Oh,
that would have probably been a great
I would
one.
love that.
That's such a huge part of the books is his trip to White Harbor because he's been there before. Like he's
Roy Dotrice reads that really well.
Oh yeah, you feel like you're there. You feel like that's the only place I'd want to go in West.
And the North remembers.
Yes, and the Mama's Foss is almost over.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's so good. And then the granddaughter, like, being like, I hate this. What are we doing? And he's like, oh, my dear, you're so brave. I love you. But we're all lying through our teeth. I love it. But let me see. Maybe a couple other honorable mentions.
Well, it's interesting.
I don't even have very many Daenerys scenes.
I was going to say, it's interesting. None of us have mentioned anything with Daenerys in it.
Well, we haven't mentioned Daenerys, Jaime, Cersei. I have a great one. I have a great honorable mention. There's a part where the Hound and Arya arrive to the Vale, and they're like, "This is Arya Stark. She's here to see her Aunt Lady her lady aunt, Lisa Aaron. She's like, "Oh, Lady Aaron died yesterday."
Yeah. And she starts laughing.
And she starts
right?
laughing. Like,
Yep.
she just starts laughing, and it's like, I love that scene. That was really funny. There's a great honorable mention, second season, the Battle of the Fists of the First Men. Good scene, horror scene, fighting on the thing. But that leads me into my favorite scene. It kind of leads from my earlier point of like the honorable mention of the Fists of the First Men. Because I really enjoy. I think the whole themes of the book is going to come down to like the zombie army, right? Like that's what we're all interested in, is the zombie army in a fantasy world. Yeah, and so I love the episode. I love and hate the episode of Hard Home.
Mhm.
I hate it because it's the first episode where they established fast-moving, sprinting zombies.
Yep.
World War Z zombies, that the big
Mhm.
waves, and they have the giant, they all coordinatedly run into gates to make them break down.
Yep.
And yes, that's a terrifying concept. However, it's literally impossible to deal with.
Yeah.
Like there is no way, even in that episode with the horde, with a coordinated horde moving at that speed would just rip. They would literally trample and turn to dust all the wood and like everything.
Yeah.
It would just the sheer force of their collision would be like water. Before then they were slow moving, dangerous, strong. You know what I mean? Like they had death grips. You know, they kill you and eat you and stuff like that. But like they weren't impossible to deal with. Like you could see how in small groups, men on horseback with torches could deal with them. You know, like
exactly. Yeah. Which is how they survived the Fist of the First Men.
Which is compelling. Like as a human, you're like, oh, how would I fight this? Okay, with strategy and smarts and the right materials, you can fight them. Whereas in that episode, you kind of realize you're like, oh, we're done. Like this is like an unstoppable force. Like there's nothing we can do, you know?
Yeah.
And so that to me was when I was like, oh, that's a really bad decision. That's going to impact the way the final fight goes, which it did. That final fight was awful because of that mechanic.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
But my favorite moment comes in that episode because it's unrelated to the zombie horde. It's the moment when Jon blocks the White Walker blade. I remember it's similar to my Purple Wedding. We were having a viewing party at my house in college, and it must have been 25 people over there. We had like pallets stacked so we could have 2 couches in the room so people could sit up higher than other people.
Yeah.
We used to really love Game of Thrones. It was a great thing.
Oh,
we'd get a bunch of rotisserie chickens and like just like have it's like everyone would be eating like a drumstick. And when that moment happened, when Jon blocks the blade, because earlier in the fight, it's established that he's going straight through weapons. So all it is Jon's determination to live and keep his guard up. And you're just like, he's like, oh, he puts the blade up there, and even the White Walker looks at him. And
he looks. He's like, what?
He clean sweeps him. He's like, oh, and he shatters him. It was even louder than the Purple Wedding. Everyone was going crazy in my house.
I remember.
So, you know, while that episode has its problems, I definitely love that scene because it establishes that, you know, he's probably got me. You know, it was just really good. It was like, okay, so this is the point of Valyrian Steel, which never came up again in the rest of the show. Like, never again did they block a blade. Like, I thought, to be honest with you, I thought the final battle was going to be like, okay, the main zombie horde is attacking the castle, but we're holding. But we're not going to hold out forever. So we need a strike team of our best fighters with the best Valyrian Steel weapons to go and start attacking and ganging up on the locations of the White Walkers, because we found out where they are from Bran.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, Jaime, Brienne, Jorah, Jon, everyone with a Valyrian Steel sword gets on a dragon, and then they get dropped off, and then they have to go and fight small bands of the Whites and then fight White Walkers, you know?
Yeah.
And finally, the Night King has to choose between going and saving his commanders, which are in turn destroying portions of the army. You know, like, imagine if, like, the forces on the gate, right, were like, oh, they're about to break through the gate, and then all of a sudden Jaime just, like, rips the head off of a White Walker controlling the gate army. And then all of a sudden the gate forces have, like, a time to breathe. You know, it's like, all right, shore up the gate, like this whole huge crowd of them died, and then the Night King has to like shift over forces, so that takes up his concentration. Like, you could have made that, with the mechanics that you had in the show of like, okay, well, this group of whites is controlled, or this group of whites, of like the actual zombies is controlled by this White Walker. That's what I thought they were going with it. Because there's a scene where you can see Jon and Daenerys fly by, and they see like a line of White Walkers. I'm like, oh, go! They're exposed. Go get them. They sent their armies ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. So I just really like the scene where it was like established that Valyrian steel is like an anti-White Walker weapon, because that's not even in the books yet. So that was like a long time fan theory. People were like, I wonder if Valyrian steel is going to have an impact.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm definitely looking forward to doing more of these videos with you, Dan.
Oh, me too, buddy.
And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and follow us on Twitter at KingSurvisors_.